So, what if the rules we all live by are actually meant to be broken? That's the wild idea we're going to dive into today. We're going to use the philosopher Slavoj Žižek's book, Like a Thief in Broad Daylight, as our map. Now, I'll be honest, his ideas can be a bit of a workout for the brain, but they might just be the key to understanding the totally bizarre and contradictory world we find ourselves in. All right, so this whole thing kicks off with a really strange but totally true story. Picture this. You're in a hotel in Macedonia, right? You go up to the front desk and ask, "Hey, is smoking allowed in the room?" And the receptionist, without skipping a beat, says, "Of course not. It is prohibited by the law." But then they add, "But you have ashtrays in the room, so this is not a problem." I mean, how weird is that? That little exchange, that bizarre logic, that's basically the key to everything we're about to unpack. And this is what Zizek calls the ashtray ideology. And for him, this isn't just some funny little anecdote. Nope. It's actually a perfect metaphor for how we all get through the day, living with all these crazy contradictions. I mean, just think about it for a second. You see the official rule, no smoking, but right next to it is the tool for breaking that exact rule, the ashtray. The rule is said out loud, and then it's immediately winked away. And the craziest part? We all just go along with it. The real message isn't just, don't smoke, it's, okay, it's prohibited, and here's how you do it anyway. And once you see it, you realize we live with this stuff every single day, just pretending it's all completely normal. And this bizarre logic, it doesn't just stop at hotel roles. It bleeds into everything, especially our idea of freedom. You know the drill. We're constantly told we have all these choices, right? We can reinvent ourselves, optimize our lives, be anything we want. But Zizek points out something pretty dark here. That endless possibility to choose, it slowly morphs into this crushing obligation to choose. And what does that lead to? This constant low-level anxiety. So all this paradoxical thinking creates what Zizek calls a topsy-turvy world, a world where everything's upside down, especially when you look at politics and economics. The lines just get totally blurred. And here's that dark side of freedom laid out plain and simple. The promise to reinvent yourself, yeah, that starts to feel like a homework assignment you can never finish, an obligation. All that opportunity, well, it just turns into this constant anxiety that maybe you're not making the right choice. And this whole idea of being an entrepreneur of yourself, it just becomes this huge weight on your shoulders, where if you don't succeed, well, who's to blame but you? Okay, and this topsy-turvy world is really scrambling our politics. Take Poland, for example. The populist right there, they brought in some of the biggest social welfare programs the country has ever seen. We're talking benefits for parents, free medicine for seniors, stuff like that. They're actually doing the anti-austerity stuff that the traditional left doesn't even talk about anymore. But, and this is a big but, they're doing it while also pushing a really strong nationalist, anti-immigrant agenda. It's a wild situation where the left ends up enforcing budget cuts and the right is the one handing out social benefits. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. Who do you think is making the biggest critiques of the system these days? It's not some radical protest group. No, it's the progressive capitalists themselves. You've got Bill Gates basically saying the private sector is too selfish to solve climate change, and that we need something that looks a lot like socialism to save the planet. I mean, wow. So that just begs a massive question, doesn't it? You have guys like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, the titans of capitalism, and they're all openly talking about how capitalism as we know it is ending. So, if the system is breaking down, why are its biggest winners the only ones who seem to have a plan for what comes next? What's going on here? And, more importantly, where does that leave you and me? All right, so where is all of this going? Well, according to Žižek, these paradoxes aren't just funny little quirks. They're starting to snowball into some really profound existential threats. He thinks we're seeing the emergence of capitalism's final form, a journey from the end of nature itself to the beginning of something called post-humanity. You've probably heard this term, the Anthropocene. It's what scientists are calling our current era. And what it means is pretty staggering. For the first time ever, humanity is the main force shaping the entire planet. Think about that. Nature isn't this stable, unchanging backdrop to our lives anymore. Our own actions are making it wild and unpredictable. The very ground we stand on, it's not a given anymore. And just as our planet is becoming unstable, so is our economy. Zizek highlights a truly chilling possibility. With the rise of AI and automation, our global economy might only need about 20% of us to keep the whole thing running. So, what happens to the other 80%? That's a huge chunk of humanity potentially left behind, seen as, well, irrelevant. And this is what leads us to the next and kind of terrifying stage, what Žižek calls post-human capitalism. We're talking about technology that's not just on our desks, but in our heads, brain-computer interfaces, social credit systems that rate our behavior. It's about a merger of biology and the digital world, opening the door for levels of control that sound like a whole new kind of slavery. And look, if you're thinking this sounds like an episode of Black Mirror, well, you're not wrong. But it's not science fiction anymore. China's social credit system is basically a real-life version of that nosedive episode. You know, the one where a low rating can stop you from even buying a train ticket? And movies like Blade Runner 2049, they're exploring the very same questions that real-life billionaires are spending billions of dollars to answer right now. I mean, listen to this. This is Elon Musk talking about his Neuralink project. He's saying it plain as day. This isn't some far-off dream. It's a real goal with huge amounts of money behind it. The mission is to literally merge our biological intelligence with digital intelligence, our brains with software. And this forces us to ask a really heavy, kind of terrifying question. As we get closer and closer to this reality, what happens when our innermost thoughts, our memories, our deepest desires, what happens when all of that becomes just another commodity, something to be mined for data, marketed, and controlled? What's left of freedom then? Okay, so this brings us full circle, right back to the title of Žižek's book, A Thief in Broad Daylight, because it's here that he presents his final, most powerful paradox, the one that ties this whole crazy picture together. You know, we tend to think of huge, radical change as something that's going to sneak up on us in the future, right? Like a thief in the night. But Žižek's point is the complete opposite. The change isn't a thief in the night, it's a thief in broad daylight. The massive transformation we're all waiting for, it isn't coming. It's already happening right now, right in front of us. So why can't we see it? Well, it's that ashtray ideology we started with. It's our blind spot. We're so caught up in the day-to-day contradictions, the anxieties, the constant pressure to choose, that we completely miss the bigger picture, that the whole system is fundamentally shifting. The end of the world as we know it, it's not going to be a big Hollywood explosion. It's this quiet, ongoing process that's already happening. There's this old biblical passage that puts it perfectly. It's when everyone is saying peace and safety, that destruction comes. And that's the point, right? The biggest changes almost always happen when we're most convinced that everything is fine, that everything is stable. It's exactly when we're all focused on peace and safety that the world is actually changing the most. And that's the final and most provocative punch from Žižek. We're not waiting around for some big revolution or collapse to happen. We're living inside of it, right now. The change is already here, acting like a thief in broad daylight. So the only question that really matters is, can we force ourselves to finally open our eyes and see it?